pig testicles stealing the spotlight, Keira Knightley secretly practicing nunchucks, and a nearsighted Mr. Darcy stumbling blindly toward romance. Today, we're digging into juicy behind-the-scenes secrets from Pride and Prejudice that'll change the way you see this divisive Austen adaptation forever. For its American release, the film added an extra scene of Elizabeth and Darcy kissing blissfully at Pemberley, a moment not shown in the UK version. Austen purists and many British viewers reviled this rather sickly Hollywood-style ending. One Jane Austen Society president called it banal and totally un-Austen. It caused such a stir that British fans petitioned to see the kiss themselves, while American test audiences had demanded more romance. Director Wright preferred the subtler UK ending, which closes on Mr. Bennet's amused reaction, and admitted the Americans like sugar a bit more in their finales. The casting process yielded some surprising what-ifs. For Mr. Darcy, the team auditioned a number of actors. Notably, a young Tom Hardy read for the role. Hardy didn't get the part, but it's fun to imagine him as Fitzwilliam Darcy before he became a Hollywood superstar. Meanwhile, Rosamund Pike was such a clear choice for Jane Bennet that she turned down a role in Harry Potter to do Pride and Prejudice. Pike had been offered the part of Rita Skeeter, the tabloid reporter, in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, but declined it, considering the role too small, and because she was committed to playing Jane. Another fun fact, it was Downton Abbey creator and Austen fan Julian Fellowes who recommended 19-year-old Carey Mulligan for the role of Kitty Bennet, earning Mulligan her film debut. Rosamund Pike and Simon Wood's Mr. Bingley had actually dated at Oxford and broken up 2 years before being cast as the lovebird couple. When Wright realized his perfect Jane and Bingley were exes, he nearly didn't hire Woods to avoid awkwardness. He eventually phoned Pike to ask if she minded, and she cheerfully had absolutely not a problem. Reassured, he cast Woods, and the two former lovers reunited on set. They hadn't seen each other in years, but on the first day of rehearsal, they gamely waltzed together, delighting the director. "It was lovely," Wright said of the ex-couple's chemistry. For the record, both actors had moved on. Pike, in fact, was by then dating Wright himself. Sadly, that relationship didn't last long. Pike and Wright got engaged after filming, planning to marry in 2008, but Wright abruptly called off the wedding, reportedly by email, leaving Pike devastated. Pike later spoke about the heartbreak of being jilted by her director fiancé. So, while Jane finds marital bliss in the film, her portrayer's off-screen romance with the director turned into a real-life scandal in the British tabloids. Veteran actor Donald Sutherland, cast as Mr. Bennet, didn't jump in right away. He engaged in a lengthy email exchange with Wright, quizzing him on minute details like 18th century agriculture before agreeing. He wanted to ensure the young director had done his homework on the period. On set, Sutherland had an unusual insecurity. At 70, he felt his modern dental work looked out of place in 1790s England. He became so self-conscious that in scenes where Mr. Bennet laughs, Sutherland often covered his mouth with his hand to hide his wrong teeth. Unlike most polished period dramas, this adaptation embraced messy realism. Wright banned heavy makeup for the Bennet sisters. Keira Knightley and Rosamund Pike perform with absolutely no makeup on their faces. He also made sure the costumes looked lived in. Notably, Elizabeth's petticoats are shown covered in mud after tromping through fields, a detail drawn from the novel's famous line about her 6 inches deep in mud. The muddy hemline aesthetic was so pronounced that screenwriter Deborah Moggick herself jokingly labeled the film the muddy hem version of Pride and Prejudice. Some traditionalists were taken aback by the Bennet girls' unkempt hair and splattered skirts, but Wright wanted a grittier, real feel. In his words, if their environment is all prissy and clean, it's just not so wonderful. I like that they're in the mud but reaching for the stars. Muddy hems aside, Wright was so committed to depicting the Bennets' country life authentically that he included a lingering shot of a boar waddling by, with enormous pig testicles in full view. He joked that the prodigious anatomy presented itself on the day and impressed the crew, and he insisted that an imposing set of pig testicles were necessary to the plotline. The earthy detail underscored that the Bennet household was surrounded by mud and livestock, not genteel refinements. Here's how Wright explained his decision to show a stud boar brought in for breeding. The Bennet family were country people. Their existence wouldn't have been all that dainty. It certainly shattered any prim and proper period drama cliches. In a break with other adaptations, Wright set the story in 1797, when Jane Austen was 21 and first drafted the novel, rather than the 1813 Regency era of its publication. This allowed him to incorporate a rougher, late Georgian vibe, including the backdrop of the Napoleonic Wars and simpler fashions. One practical and humorous reason: Wright hated Regency Empire waist dresses, joking that the high-waisted gowns made every woman look like a balloon. By setting the film in the 1790s, the costume designer could use Georgian styles with corsets and natural waists. The slightly earlier setting also plausibly put grand gentlemen like Darcy and Bingley in local village dances. Post-French Revolution, aristocrats were mingling more with common folk. When casting Elizabeth Bennet, Wright initially worried Knightley's celebrity beauty would miscast her as the second prettiest Bennet sister. In Austen's story, Jane is the acknowledged beauty, and Lizzie is attractive but more noted for her wit and eyes. Wright was looking for someone more plain or unconventional and nearly dismissed Keira until he met her in person. To his surprise, the 18-year-old actress showed up scruffy and tomboyish. A scruffy little kid, all elbows and knees, he said, which suddenly struck him as perfect for the spirited, unstuffy Lizzie. Knightley's performance went on to earn an Oscar nomination. Looks aside, it was hard to imagine anyone else as Lizzie Bennet. The iconic finale where Darcy strides through the dawn mist to declare his love was as dreamy for the actor as for viewers, but for a different reason. Matthew Macfadyen couldn't see a thing. Macfadyen is very nearsighted and wasn't wearing contacts in the early morning light, so when they shot Darcy's long walk across the field, he had no idea where to focus. Wright had to stand behind the camera waving a bright red flag, actually a red coat, as a target so Matthew knew which direction to walk. "I couldn't see the director," he admitted. He just followed the distant red blur and tried not to trip. Luckily, the moment still came out magic, even if Mr. Darcy was effectively blind during the big proposal. The filmmakers experimented with scenes that never made the final cut. Deborah Mogek's early draft of the script actually ended with a grand wedding montage for Elizabeth and Darcy, featuring all the characters celebrating. Worried it felt too neatly tied up and expensive to film, Wright ditched the wedding idea in favor of a simpler emotional payoff. Instead, he shot the intimate father-daughter scene and Mr. Bennet's laugh as the ending. Early drafts also had the camera following Lydia and Wickham's scandalous elopement, but budget constraints prevented filming it. Ultimately, the movie stays with the Bennets at home, and the little scene of Lizzie spinning on the swing, added last minute, survived when other scenes didn't. To forge genuine family chemistry, Joe Wright took an unusual approach. He immersed the cast in the Bennet household. The 5 actresses playing the Bennet sisters, plus Tom Hollander as Mr. Collins, were asked to spend time inside the actual house location, Groombridge Place, for days. They even each claimed a bedroom in the house to use as their own space instead of trailers. Wright had them play games like hide and seek all through the creaky old manor to break the ice. According to Hollander, one afternoon of hiding in closets and under beds with his on-screen sisters was one of the happiest days of my life. This unorthodox rehearsal put the young cast at ease with each other. By the time cameras rolled, all the giggling, teasing, and talking over each other was second nature. Though uncredited, Oscar-winning writer Emma Thompson had a hand in the screenplay's final form. Wright brought Thompson in to do a dialogue polish. Thompson is an Austen fan. She famously adapted Sense and Sensibility, so she sharpened several exchanges and added witty touches. In fact, Thompson single-handedly invented the scene where Charlotte Lucas confides in Lizzie after getting engaged to Mr. Collins. The poignant line, "Don't you judge me, Lizzie," was improvised by Thompson during a brainstorming walk with Joe Wright on Hampstead Heath. Wright was so moved that he scribbled it down on the spot and shot the new scene, giving Charlotte a moment of depth not in Austen's novel. Thompson's contributions earned her a special thanks in the credits. On screen, Lizzie is disgusted by the charming but disreputable Mr. Wickham. Yet off-screen, actress Keira Knightley fell for Wickham's actor. Knightley and Rupert Friend, who played Wickham, began dating during the film's production and kept a relationship for about 5 years after. The pair were very private as a couple, but it was well known to fans that Elizabeth and Wickham were an item, which they found amusingly ironic. By 2011, the romance had run its course, but not before Knightley jokingly noted the Pride and Prejudice oddity. She went home with the cad, not the Mr. Darcy. Meanwhile, her Darcy, Matthew McFadyen, was happily married to someone else and became godfather to Knightley's child years later, proving all is well among the cast. Keira might seem perfectly poised as Elizabeth, but between takes she hadn't completely shed her action film past. At the time, Knightley had recently filmed an action movie, Domino, and had learned to twirl nunchucks. She later admitted that on set at Pride and Prejudice, she would sometimes relieve boredom by practicing with nunchucks, while fully dressed as Lizzie Bennet. Picture Elizabeth in her 19th century frock secretly doing ninja moves behind the scenes. Knightley was careful not to let Joe Wright see these antics. He never did. Wright laughed that he was very glad he didn't know his leading lady was sneaking in ninja training in a corseted costume, because it might have shattered the period illusion. Despite the off-camera martial arts, Knightley remained utterly in character when the cameras rolled. A true professional with a secret talent up her sleeve. American actress Jenna Malone was so determined to play wild child Lydia Bennet that she literally drove through the night for the chance. The casting team had struggled to find their Lydia until Malone, uninvited, made a 7-hour solo drive from Lake Tahoe to Los Angeles to audition for Wright in person. She arrived looking unassuming and even wrong for the part at first glance. Wright recalled thinking she's so obviously not going to be Lydia when she walked in. But once Malone began reading in character, she blew him away with an energy and edge that no one had brought to Lydia. Her bold gamble paid off. She won the role against the odds. Wright later praised Malone's dedication and noted Lydia is actually one of the most challenging parts, requiring both giddy silliness and genuine flirtatious risk, which Malone pulled off wonderfully. Not many actors would drive half a day to crash an audition, but that gutsy move made her a Bennet sister.